Uber California is now allowing drivers to set their own fares. Let's talk about it. Welcome everybody, Mark here from Mark's Travel Time. If you're not yet subscribed to this channel, please click my face down there in the corner, ring the bell icon up above. This is by far the most interesting and unexpected news I have heard come out of Uber. Now, for those of you who are not following the whole Uber story, the soap opera that is Uber, AB 5, Assembly Bill 5 passed. It went into effect. It went into law January 1st. And Uber does not want to comply with this law. So it's tweaking how it does business in the state of California, hoping to circumvent, I don't know if circumvent is correct, but make itself come in alignment so they do not have to recognize Uber drivers as employees. And one of the things that they did today, Tuesday, is this the 21st, January 21st, is they're testing it in some markets, allowing drivers to set their own fares. So I am getting this right out of the Wall Street Journal, and I'm going to read some snippets from this piece. Uber Technologies is testing a new feature that allows some drivers in California to set their fares, the latest in a series of moves to give them more autonomy in response to the state's new gig economy law, as I just stated. Starting Tuesday morning, that is today, drivers who ferry passengers from airports in Santa Barbara, Palm Springs, and Sacramento can charge up to 5 times the fare Uber sets on a ride, according to a person involved in developing the feature. Uber confirmed this in an email, saying it's going to do initial tests that will give drivers more control over the rates they charge. Now, this is really important because a lot of you are like me and we travel. Now, please understand this is just tests on a very, very limited scope. It's just from those 3 airlines. I really want to hear from drivers in that market how this is going. As a rider, I'm thinking, wait a minute, when I put in my request now, there's going to be all kinds of bidding going on. So let's read this a little further. The ride-hailing giant has made many changes to the way it works in response to California's Assembly Bill 5. The law requires companies to treat workers as employees. That is not true. It does not. So they misstated this. What it does is it gives a stricter, more defined litmus test, and I'm surprised that the Wall Street Journal stated it that way. What it does is it has what they call the ABC rule, and they have to meet 3 criteria in order to prove that the drivers are either employees, in this case drivers are either employees or independent contractors. But let's go on and see how this specifically is working in regards to drivers. Uber's latest challenges will set up a bidding system that allows drivers to increase fares in 10% increments up to a maximum of 5 times. To clarify, means 50%. So if you are going to be charged $10, that's what Uber gives me as an estimated rate as a passenger. The most I will pay is $15. So it's sort of like giving them a voluntary 50% surge. That's sort of what it is. But it could be 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. That's not really setting your own fares, is it? Let's go on. The price includes base fare, time spent, and distance covered by a driver. There's no limit in how often the drivers can raise their prices. It says that, but just in 2 sentences earlier, it says it lets the drivers increase fares up to a maximum of 5 times. So right within this Wall Street Journal article, it says 2 opposite things. It conflicts. It goes against its own reporting. One sentence says, it lets drivers increase fares in 10% increments up to a maximum of 5 times, 50%, right? And then 2 sentences down, it says there's no limit to how often drivers can raise prices. So I'm confused. Okay, let's go on. Once a rider pings the Uber app at the locations in the pilot program, Uber will match the rider with the driver who set the lowest price. So it's a bidding war that goes in the opposite direction. So if I do nothing as a driver, I should get the ride. Now I'm wondering, how many drivers does it go out to? It doesn't indicate that either. So this sounds like an incredibly confusing system. So I'm a passenger in the airport, and I put in my request for a ride. It says, Mark, this ride is going to cost you $10. Arbitrary figure because it's easy to work with. How many drivers does this go out to? Driver A says, I'll take it at $10. Driver B says, I'm going to increase this to 20%. So now driver B says 30%, driver C says 40%, driver A runs back in and increases it again. And this keeps increasing, and one driver does nothing. I say, oh, that's one that I'm getting. Doesn't make sense to me. We'll see how this goes. It seems incredibly complex. The drivers who set higher fares gradually are dispatched as more riders request rides. How many drivers does this go out to? While the changes give drivers more autonomy, setting fares too high could lead to fewer trips and longer waits. Yes, it will. For riders, the future might result in higher fares and more volatility. I'm not sure, because I know how Uber drivers work. There's always going to be someone that will undercut the next one. Drivers historically, as drivers tried to get together and say, let's have a day we're not going to drive in order to send a message to Uber. There's always drivers that are going to swoop in and say, oh man, there's my opportunity. This is my chance to get more rides because these guys are having their sick outs or whatever you call them. And I don't think it's going to have any volatility or delay at all, because I think there's going to be a lot of drivers that are going to say, fine, $10, I'll take it. Hop in, Mark. Starting next week, Uber also plans, listen to this, it gets crazier, also plans to let drivers set fees lower than Uber's price. Woohoo! Now, as a driver, this is terrible news. As a rider, I'm thinking, awesome. I'm going to get even cheaper rides. In addition to choosing a higher multiple, drivers will be able to charge as little as 1/10. So now my $10 fee can cost me $1. 1/10 of Uber's set price, decreasing fares 10% at a time. This will also they will also be allowed to opt out of surge pricing. I don't like this. I don't like it one bit. Why not just keep it simple? Last week we heard they were going to a 75-25% split. I, as a rider, would know what I was going to pay. Sometimes surges would be in effect. Not a big deal. Now all this stuff is going on behind the scenes. How long are drivers going to have to set this? How long do I, as a rider, have to sit at the airport and wait for all of these shenanigans to go on while I just want to get in a car and go home, or go to my hotel, or go to dinner, or wherever it is I want to go? And then it quotes our friend Harry Campbell, who runs another channel here on YouTube. And he says, he gives an opinion, what if drivers are setting lower fares and lower just so they can get rides? Well, of course, Harry. Absolutely, that's what's going to happen. This next statement is a paraphrase. It isn't Harry's quote, but I think Harry's off base here. Of course, he may have quoted him wrong. The test program also doesn't account for quality, Mr. Campbell said, because it doesn't get drivers with higher or better ratings the ability to charge higher prices. Yes, it does. Of course it does. You have better ratings, I can still charge more money. But it also gives drivers with lower ratings the ability to charge higher prices. Harry says that would typically be the case in free market. No, it's not. In free market, anybody can charge whatever they want. It's not only people with a better quality product that can charge more. You can charge more and have a really crummy product. Some people may not buy it, but you can still do it. By testing the new feature in smaller cities, Uber wants to limit any potential damage it has to its business. Boy, it's about time Uber started thinking about that, isn't it? I think any PR that's water over the dam or water under the bridge or wherever that water goes. Uber will use the feedback from the initial rollout to determine whether it'll broaden the measure statewide. How about nationwide? I don't like it. It doesn't sound like a great idea to me. Then it talks about Lyft, DoorDash, and Postmates, how they have raised up to $110 million. I don't know how they raised that. Where's that money coming from when they say raised? Or do they just set it aside in order to have a ballot initiative? They're opting out. Lyft hasn't done anything yet. Uber has been doing a lot of things. Like I said, they reverted back to the multiplier surge, which drivers like, passengers don't like so much. They went back to the 75-25 split, which is what they were doing 2 years ago. So all Uber's doing is backsliding. Is that any progress? I don't think so. I don't think it's progress for anyone, for drivers, riders, or Uber itself. You know, it's taking us back to where we were 2 years ago. And it says Uber and Postmates also sued California to challenge the legislation. I suspect that's going to go on for a long time. What do you think? Those of you who take Uber as passengers, what do you think is going to be the fallout of this? Are we going to be waiting at curbside while behind the scenes there's all kinds of bidding wars going on? My rate's going to go higher and higher and higher? Or don't I even see that? I suspect I don't see it. I suspect this stuff has got to happen in a short amount of time, maybe a minute, and all of a sudden my price comes back to me. I would like to hear from drivers in these three markets, the airports in Santa Barbara, Palm Springs, and Sacramento. Did this work for you? Did you experience it? Was it confusing trying to figure out how it worked? Now they do show screenshots here, but it doesn't look any different to me. I'll show the whole thing. On the left side, you're seeing what it looks like for the driver. And it says the driver's finding trips that are 1.2% fares or higher. So I guess what you're allowed to do is put in what you want before the fare comes through. I don't know. And then it says, what is your preference? There it shows a multiplier. I prefer my fare plus 10%, plus 20%. And then it says that it looks like as a rider on the right, can cancel this? Decline it? Or is that the driver declining it? Maybe you have to put in your bid before the ping even comes through. This is the most confusing thing I have ever read. But hey, I'm not in California driving for Uber. So fortunately, I can sit back and just see how this unfolds. California drivers, let's hear it. Give me the thumbs up. Leave your comments down below. Those of you who are watching that have not yet subscribed, click my face and ring the bell icon so you know when I post new videos. Thanks for joining me, everyone, to this oh so confusing video. I'm Mark, and this is Mark's Travel Time.